after the fight. Maddie was exhausted. She had slept at all the night before, worrying over her wanted criminal of a husband. Then there was the hedgehog from space, the crazy doctor with the robots, and she had been pushed off a roof. Suffice to say, it'd been a crazy 24 hours. But it occurred to her as they were walking away from the scene of the battle that her poor husband was probably 3 times as tired as she was. He'd been running from the government for nearly 2 days now. There was no telling that whack job of a scientist headed him with. If the state of his truck was anything to go on, it wasn't pretty. She paused. There were footsteps behind them a few seconds ago. Tom seemed to notice too. They spotted Sonic a little ways back, falling behind.
You okay, kid?
All good. Don't let Lord.
Sonic straightened a bit and smiled.
You guys go ahead. I'm just gonna head home.
Home you have? Where is home?
Maddie asked. Sonic made a vague gesture towards the woods. Maddie asked. Sonic laughed a bit.
You say that like you were expecting something different.
His laughter collapsed into a coughing fit. Tom started towards him.
Sonic.
Maddie wasn't far behind, not missing the panic laced in her husband's voice. He waved Tom off.
Fine, I'm fine, don't worry.
Maddie shook her head.
You are not fine.
Oh geez, how could she forget the kid? Tom may be more exhausted than she was, but Sonic had been zipping around non-stop. He'd almost died 10 minutes before, not to mention the massive amount of energy he just put out.
No way you were going in the woods in your condition.
She highly doubted he'd make it to wherever home was before passing out from exhaustion, not to mention the possible concussion. There were definitely going to be some cuts and bruises, most likely some burns as well. Once the adrenaline wore off, everything was going to start hurting. Sonic blinked.
But my kid is in the woods, so I kinda have to go in the woods.
No.
Pretzel lady, I think you're misunderstanding the concept of going home.
Sonic narrowed his eyes at her.
Hit your head when I pushed off the building, did you?
Tom rolled his eyes.
I think she wants you to come home in a Sonic.
Sonic tilted his head.
Oh, why?
Because I'm a doctor and I say so.
But...
No.
Maddie interrupted.
You've been knocked unconscious by 2 explosions. No way you were going anywhere by yourself.
3 explosions, actually.
Sonic noticed the look on their faces.
It wasn't for very long. Robotic knocked me off the side of the building and I blacked out for just a split second. Not a big deal.
Big deal? Very big deal.
I've just decided I don't want you walking.
Sonic spluttered in protest.
Sonic, look, either I'm carrying you or Thomas, and you don't get a say.
Hang on.
Maddie ignored him.
You know what? Tom's not in any condition to carry you.
She scooped Sonic up and started walking again. Tom looped an arm over her shoulder.
Not any condition, huh?
You have to listen to me too. I may be a doctor for animals, but I'm also your wife.
Maddie said sternly.
And what's your advice? And what's your advice, as my wife and none of that?
Tom asked.
Sleep right after we get our little alien friend patched up.
Maddie said. Sonic shifted in her arms.
Little hand friend is still here, and he still wants down.
Maddie carefully tightened her grip around him, not wanting to agitate any injuries but also not wanting him to try and jump down.
Little alien friend is gonna have to deal.
Sonic huffed.
The house isn't that far. You'll survive.
True to her word, the walk only lasted about 15 minutes or so, 15 minutes filled with banter between Sonic and Tom. But Maddie didn't miss the occasional wins. The injuries were starting to catch up with him, just like she thought. Tom opened the door for her when they got to the house.
Should probably warn you that the kitchen is a little messy.
A little messy.
Maddie asked as she walked in.
I feel like you're lying to me.
He's totally lying. Kitchen's kinda destroyed.
Sonic said. Maddie peered into the kitchen and sighed. She was too tired to be angry. She'd ask about what happened in the morning.
We'll deal with it later. Tom, can you get my first aid kit? We'll meet you in the bathroom.
Sonic squinted against the light when Maddie flipped the light switch.
Oh, wow, that is bright.
She set him on the counter next to the sink.
So, anything in particular that hurts?
He scrubbed at his eyes.
Oh, my ass.
Maddie laughed.
Aside from that,
Lifting his head and blinking, Sonic said.
Not really.
He smiled in relief.
Okay, that's better.
eyes adjusted.
Maddie studied his pupils carefully. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with them.
How's your head?
It's fine.
I'll be the judge of that.
Without her equipment, she couldn't make an official assessment, but she could get the basics down.
We're gonna check to make sure you don't have a concussion, okay? Try touching your nose.
Sonic looked confused, but he did it.
What does this do exactly?
To test your coordination.
Maddie answered.
We're testing your memory next, just to make sure. Do you remember what crazy car calls you?
Sure, Blue Devil.
And how did you first
Sonic hesitated.
Like, when did I first see him or when we first talked?
When you first talked.
He shoot me with a something, tranquilizer.
He tapped a spot in his leg.
Sucked, but I woke up. I was in a cage, but I was awake.
Maddie raised an eyebrow.
A cage.
Yeah, I got out, though. I don't think Donut Lord realized I could do that.
She considered his size.
Sounds like you woke up pretty fast. That's interesting.
Why is that?
Because it was a beer tranquilizer.
Maddie said. Tom walked into the bathroom with the first aid kit.
Is he telling you about the tranquilizer? You're never gonna let that one go, are you?
You shot him.
Maddie said.
He doesn't have to let go of anything.
She took the first aid kit and opened it up.
Given your size, the amount of sedatives should have put you down for several hours.
She decided to leave out the part where it possibly could have killed him.
I guess it just worked through your system really fast. Do you have a high metabolism?
I wouldn't know.
Do you feel hungry a lot?
Tom clarified. Sonic gave them a one-arm shrug.
I guess so.
Maddie took his arm and started looking it over. Bruising was hard to check for, but there were a few scratches. Those would heal on their own in no time. Then she reached for his other arm, and he recoiled.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
Sonic said quickly. Tom snorted.
Try again.
Sonic gave him a brief glare.
Okay, fine. It's just it hurts to move my arm. A little. It's not that bad.
Hurts where?
I said it's...
Sonic?
Maddie interrupted firmly. He opened his mouth to protest, then stopped himself.
my shoulder.
He muttered. Maddie turned Sonic so she could look at his shoulder. She had noticed it because it was dark outside, but in the bright light of the bathroom, she could see the gash. Not deep enough to need stitches, thankfully, but they'd have to keep an eye on it. That wasn't all. She also caught a glimpse of his back. Glancing in the mirror allowed her to see the rest. It wasn't as bad as she thought it'd be, but there were definitely some burns. She crossed her arms.
So when I asked if anything was hurting.
Sonic glanced away. Sonic shifted under Maddie's disapproving stare.
Look, everything is faster for me than it is for you. Okay, this is gonna heal up super duper quick and it'll be fine.
That's not the point, to be honest, so that we can help.
Tom said.
So you can,
Sonic paused.
right? Help.
He met Maddie's gaze.
My shoulder that's probably a cut, right? I think my back is burned, and my leg hurts, but not really bad. Just a little.
Tom patted Sonic on the shoulder that wasn't injured.
Was that so hard?
Yeah, it was that hard.
Sonic said.
Still kinda new to the help thing. I'm used to just letting things heal. They always do eventually.
Maddie had several questions about that statement, but she decided to ignore them.
Tom, can you hand me a wash rag? I'm gonna try and get some of this blood cleaned up.
Sonic tried twisting his arm around to look at his shoulder.
So how bad is it?
I've seen worse.
Maddie turned on some warm water and let it run over the rag.
But it's still not gonna feel very good while I do this.
She wrung out the rag, but left the warm water running. She knew from experience how hard it was to wash dried blood out of fur, but luckily the wound was pretty fresh, most likely from the last explosion that landed him in Green Hills, so it was pretty easy to rinse off.
Are you okay, bud?
Tom asked. Sonic set his jaw.
Yeah.
Neither of them believed him. Maddie ran the rag under the water again.
Hey, I'm gonna try and clean up some of these burns now.
She gently pressed the rag against his back and he hissed in pain.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Sonic muttered.
It's okay if you're not.
Tom told him.
I'm totally fine.
Sonic repeated insistently.
It doesn't even hurt that bad.
Maddie pulled away.
That sounded a little not fine.
Sonic's hands curled into fists.
I'm fine. Brett's a lady. It's all good.
His gaze darted to Tom.
Why are you helping him? I wasn't the only one who got hurt.
Nice try.
Tom said.
The most I've got is a few scratches and some bruises, and I can take care of those myself.
Maddie set the rag to the side and turned off the water.
Now, Sonic, how fast do you think this will heal?
There was a pause.
I mean, a week maybe, or two.
She nodded slowly.
Okay, that's not too bad. No concussion, no stitches, all the burns are first degree. Think we'll put some antibiotic on those, wrap them up just in case, and check on them tomorrow.
So I can come back tomorrow.
Sonic asked as Maddie pulled the antibiotic from her first aid kit.
Come back. No, you are not leaving.
Maddie gently spread the antibiotic over the cut on his shoulder and the worst of his burns.
I know you were probably anxious to get back to where you live, but I seriously don't want you speeding around the woods at night. You were too tired and too banged up.
And you can't change your mind. We're stuck here on further notice.
Tom added. Maddie couldn't quite place the look on Sonic's face. He looked like he wanted to protest, but couldn't bring himself to do it. She had a sneaking suspicion he wasn't entirely opposed to staying the night. She put the antibiotic away and started wrapping up the injuries.
Will you be okay crashing on the couch?
Sonic showed the barest trace of a smile.
Yeah, that sounds kind of great, actually.
Tom clapped his hands together. Yep,
Alright, I'm gonna go find a blanket or something for the little guy while you finish up.
I'm not that little.
Sonic protested while Tom walked away.
You barely reach my waist, kid. You're tiny.
Tom shouted from the hallway. Maddie smiled apologetically.
Sorry, kid, but he's right. You're pretty small for a teenager.
He muttered grumpily as she helped him down.
I'm sure you're normal-sized for an anthropomorphic hedgehog.
Sonic made a noncommittal sound, like he wasn't sure himself, and followed Maddie to the living room.
What? Didn't you see people like you on your planet?
No,
Sonic yawned.
I lived with an old, and I pretty much grew up on this planet anyways.
That raised about 10,000 more questions that Maddie was sure Sonic wouldn't have the energy to answer. Tom was waiting for them with a blanket.
Okay, Tom, dude, you seriously need to rest.
Yeah, I know.
Sonic said as he pulled himself up onto the couch.
And no sneaking out.
Tom warned.
Maddie said she wanted to check those in the morning.
Sonic made no comment as he started to untangle the folded blanket.
Sonic, I'm serious. Not running.
Okay.
Sonic relented.
I won't go anywhere.
Tom looked satisfied with the answer.
Go to now.
He turned to her.
I do believe my wife prescribed sleep.
Maddie nodded.
I did indeed.
She gave Sonic one last glance.
Get some rest, okay?
I'll try.
Sonic promised.
And thanks for, everything.
She figured there wasn't a point in trying to convince him that he didn't need to thank her.
You're very welcome, Sonic.
And then she went to bed with her husband, looking forward to sleeping after all the worrying and life-threatening danger. She was just happy that her husband was home and safe and not on the run from the government, and that the poor kid sleeping on the couch was actually sleeping on a couch, and not in the woods somewhere, or worse, trapped on some distant planet. She briefly considered making breakfast in the morning, as a mini celebration of them not dying, until she remembered that their kitchen was in ruins. Oh well, maybe some other day.